Whoa, a video that's not a brilliantly written and directed plush video? I know, surprising, but hey, there was another top 10 video on this channel at one point. I mean, look at it, it's a work of art. Look at that video recording, it's phenomenal. While it's gonna be hard to top that masterpiece, I wanted to try to do more different types of videos on this channel, so why not talk about my favorite thing, TV. TV is so fun to discuss, as every individual show has hours and hours of episodes to dissect. But we're not going to praise television today. Instead, we are going to discuss some of my least favorite TV characters. A bad character can really damper your enjoyment of a show, especially when they are in it a lot. Some of these choices for characters are more silly and some of the worst things ever and make me want to watch something else. Anyway, without further ado, let's start the list with number 10. Number 10! First up on the list, we have one of the most hateful and malicious characters in all of television. The character who kept me up late at night with anger for years. That character is Ruby from Max and Ruby. You may laugh, but true story, when I was a little kid, I used to write my own episodes of this show where Ruby got brutally killed. I was a pretty classy kid. I'm not entirely sure why I had so much rage for her, other than her voice is pretty annoying, and I wanted Max to be in the show more, because he's basically the coolest bunny on the block. The one thing I do remember specifically that caused me a lot of childhood anger towards the stupid rabbit was the episode where she steals Max's iconic red elephant, and that really pissed me off as a stuffed animal-loving child. Like, bitch, no, that's Max's! This pick is really just there to appease my inner childhood rage, but still, you can never trust a bunny who takes a man's stuffed elephant. Number 9! Next up, we have a slightly more unpopular opinion, unless I found out there's a strong fandom for Ruby the Rabbit from Max and Ruby. My number 9 pick is Robb Stark from Game of Thrones. I'm sure a lot of you like Robb, but like, he's so boring. The first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones have a whole plotline about Robb, and I just don't care. I don't care how he's respected by his soldiers, I don't care about his relationship with his mom, who's also a terrible character, and I especially don't care about his relationship with his wife. Is she even a character? What personality traits does she have? Robb is like soggy bread as a character. You never want to be bored in an action show. I bet a lot of people would say, oh, the worst character in the show is Ramsay or Joffrey or Littlefinger, but like, that's the point, they're supposed to be awful people. Robb is supposed to be one of the heroes who we're rooting for, but no, I don't root for him. He's boring, I don't care about him. Number 8. Next up, we have a character who would be much higher on the list if he was more of an actual character, and that's Uncle Gumbald from Adventure Time. So, the last season of Adventure Time has a lot of problems. A lot may be an understatement. The humor is just not funny, the episodes are slow and pointless, and worst of all, the story is so lame. All the major conflicts just come out of nowhere, and Uncle Gumbald is at the center of them. So Uncle Gumbald, the new random relative of Princess Bubblegum we've never heard of until now, is now the main villain of the show, instead of a character like, oh, I don't know, the Lich, who's actually been built up. So now they spend this whole final season building up this awful character, and then at the very last minute they have another undeveloped villain be the final boss. Great storytelling. I just noticed I didn't even really talk about Uncle Gumbald as a character, but he's just that irrelevant. He's a villain because the plot needs him to be a villain. Who even cares? Number 7! The worst kind of bad in a TV show to me, other than being boring, is bad humor. That feeling of awkward silence when a joke just doesn't land kills me. That's one of the reasons I'm more into drama than comedy, so it hurts me when a good comedy show has an awfully unfunny character, which brings me to number 7, which is ERIN from The Office. There's not really a lot to say about this one, other than she's just not funny. She doesn't work in this show and feels more like she belongs in a more wacky comedy, like Parks and Rec or something. Isn't the point of The Office that it's supposed to be more grounded, and having this dumb, zany, unfunny character just leads to awkward silence? ERIN not being funny is a combination of the way she's written and the way she's acted. I'm sure some people find her funny, but none of it works for me. Number 6. Here we have another character who is unfortunately from a show I love. Number 6 is Kate from Lost. While Lost has many issues, one thing it excels at is characters. Sawyer, Charlie, my boy Ben Linus, there's so many good characters. And then there's Kate. Kate is one of those characters, much like another one coming up on this list, who they try so hard to make cool and badass, but she just ends up A, getting captured all the time, and B, just being a pawn in a love triangle. She's not likable, she's not interesting, she causes more harm than good. Why does she have to be in the show? Number 5. Here we have a character from one of the most highly respected television shows of all time, The OC. Hate on the show all you want, but I kinda love it. It's pretty bad in every season but the first one, but it'll always be a guilty pleasure of mine. That doesn't mean it doesn't have some awful characters. The show basically just introduces a new terrible character every few episodes for drama. But the worst character was one who was in it from the start, Marissa Cooper. I'm sure most people who watch this show agree with me, so I don't really have to argue too much that Marissa sucks. She's annoying, poorly written, does whatever the plot needs her to create drama. I'm sure we were supposed to like her, but like, how? She's so comically awful to the characters that she feels like she would be in some sort of parody of this type of show. Like, how is she a real character? Number 4. So, The Good Place. I like this show a lot. It has some great characters for the most part, it has some great world building, and a really interesting plot. However, I wish it wasn't a comedy. Like, I'm not trying to diss on the show too much, but it's really not that funny. Like, it's fun, and some of the jokes land, but it would work better as more of a drama. Like, for the most part, even with the jokes, like, it still works okay. I mean, I do really like this show, I even have all the Funko Pops, but one character just doesn't work for me, and that's the judge. All the other characters, even Jason, work for me even when they are written more humorously because they are still not annoying and they're likable. The judge is just annoying and she breaks the pace of the show. She's not funny and you can't really find her likable either because she causes so much of the conflict. Whenever she's on screen, I just feel embarrassed. And maybe it's just the way she's written, or maybe it's Maya Rudolph, who I really don't find funny in anything she's in, but she just kills the show when she's in it. Luckily, she's not in that much of the show, but when she is in it, it's pretty awkward. Number 3! My number 3 pick is basically a worse version of Kate from Lost. The one thing Kate has going for her is Lost is a pretty well-written show for the most part, ignoring some plot threads. The Walking Dead, on the other hand, I mean, it's not bad, but I wouldn't say the writing is one of its greatest attributes. Same thing with the characters. Not that the show has bad characters, in fact it has some great ones. Rick, Glenn, Maggie, Herschel, even the governor, but a lot of the characters just feel like excuses for cool deaths, or they're just boring. Or, in the case of number 3, horribly annoying. My pick for number 3 is Andrea. Andrea is much like Kate, where the writers try really hard to make her this cool badass, but she really just causes most of the conflict. Really, I can't decide if the writers wanted us to like her or not, because it feels like they're simultaneously trying to make us hate her and love her. It's so confusing. They try to write in all these cool, badass scenes for her, which just come across as awkward, and then they also write in scenes with her saying awful dialogue and her doing horrible things, like when she shot Daryl, one of the best characters, even when the group told her not to, and when she knew about all the horrible things the governor was doing, and she still was like in love with him. Also, sometimes they give her episodes all about her, and they just suck. You can't get invested in her survival if you really just want her to get eaten by a walker. She's just an awful character. Number 2! I think I'm gonna get shit for dissing on The Walking Dead, so let me throw out another opinion most won't like. I think Stranger Things is really overrated. Not that it's bad to me, it's just not terribly remarkable. The characters especially really just don't stick out much. I don't like most of them. I don't like Eleven, I don't like Joyce, I don't like Hopper. I just don't get the appeal of most of them. The worst character in my opinion is Lucas's comic genius little sister, Erica. I have no clue what I'm missing because I see so many videos about Stranger Things characters and they're all like in love with this character. Like, are we watching the same show? She's so annoying, and like you could say that's the point, but we're definitely supposed to be like, oh Erica, you're so witty and smart. Like, no, she's not funny. She's not likable, she's not funny, she doesn't have any point in the show. Everything she says makes me cringe. It's not really the actress's fault, she's just so terribly written. And you know that she's gonna be in next season a bunch, because the fans can't get enough of her. Like, what am I missing? I hate her. Before we get to number 1, let's go over a few quick honorable mentions. Another childhood pick was Mama Bear from Berenstain Bears, mainly for scenes like this. Look, the kids only walk away for 2 seconds in the mall, and then she like tells them off, like, bitch, they only went like 2 feet away, don't have an ulcer. Then there's Jughead from Riverdale. His dialogue is bad, and he's a bit cringe, but like, so is all of Riverdale, it's to be expected. Then there's this little twerp kid from Lock and Key. I only watched 1 episode of this show, so I'm not going to include him on the list, but he talked about Fortnite, and there was some bad joke about him saying aloha. It was just atrocious. Then there's Izzy from Atypical. Not an awful character, but her romance with Casey is just so clunky and poorly written to me. I can't stand it. Finally, for honorable mentions, we have Michelle Tanner from Full House. She's definitely worse than any character on this list, but she's from Full House. Are we surprised she's terribly written and annoying? Now that all the honorable mentions are done, let's get to number 1. Number 1! This is kind of an odd choice, and this character isn't the most hateful thing ever, but I just don't like anything about him, and that's Christopher from Gilmore Girls. Christopher is Lorelai, the main character of the show's ex-boyfriend, and the father of her daughter, Rory. Christopher is a combination of all the terrible things I hate in characters. He's not funny, much like characters like the Judge or Erica, even when they try to give him witty dialogue. He's also basically just a shitty plot device they use whenever they need drama, like Uncle Gumbald or Marissa. He never contributes anything positive like Kate, and much like Robb Stark, he's just so boring. Whenever he's involved in the plot, I want to fall asleep, and the worst part about him is how him sleeping with Lorelai breaks up her and Luke, which is terrible and clunky in and of itself, and even though he's basically just an excuse for the plot to happen, we still have to deal with the romance drama with him and Lorelai. Like, newsflash, no one watching the show wants them together or cares if they sort out their relationship problems. I don't want to watch several episodes about this. Make it stop. And that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the slightly different type of video to break up the plush vids, and let me know who your least favorite TV characters are. And also let me know if any of you had childhood fantasies of Ruby from Max and Ruby dying horribly. Hopefully I was not the only one.